The day my family tried to take my inheritance, I realized it wasn't about property. It was about control, and my grandmother had planned for that. I am Mara Kline. My profession is an urban planning attorney. I was 34 years old when my mother told me I had 48 hours to remove my belongings from a house I legally owned. She didn't say it like a threat. She said it like a calendar reminder she assumed I had missed. My mother, Ruth Kline, was 62, meticulous, status-driven, emotionally transactional, and believes order is morality. Mara, she said, her voice smooth and tidy, we've decided Elise will be taking possession of the Bell House. You need to get anything personal out by Sunday evening. Elisa was my younger sister, 30, and appears fragile and agreeable. She weaponizes helplessness and is smarter than she lets on. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, watching steam curl up from a mug I had already forgotten to drink. Outside my apartment window, the city moved like it always did. Buses hissing, someone laughing, a siren somewhere far enough away not to matter. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "I'm sorry," I said. "You've decided what?" There was a pause, the kind of pause my mother used when she believed someone else was being deliberately slow. "Elise needs stability right now. You don't live there. It's the sensible solution." Then my father joined the call. He always did when things were meant to feel final. My father, Victor Kline, 65, was strategic, charming in public, and coercive in private. He treated family as assets to be optimized. "We're not asking," he said calmly. "We're informing you." That was the moment I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. The Bell House sits 2 towns over, tucked into a quiet street where the trees lean toward each other like conspirators. Cedar siding, slate roof, a porch that creaks even when no one is standing on it. The windows never sealed properly in winter, and the back steps always dipped slightly to the left. It was the only place that had ever felt like mine. My grandmother, Nora Bell, raised me there while my parents built lives that didn't have room for unpredictability. They visited on holidays, sent checks, asked about grades. Nora taught me how to replace a fuse, how to negotiate without raising my voice, how to notice when someone was trying to move the ground beneath your feet while insisting you were standing still. "Pay attention to patterns," she used to say, while tightening loose hinges or trimming roses. "People repeat themselves long before they admit what they want." When she died 7 years earlier, she left me the house outright. No conditions, no trusts, no shared ownership. My parents smiled politely at the reading of the will. Then they waited. They always waited. Elisa's divorce gave them their opening. She needed space. A child needed stability. I had an apartment downtown and a career that made my parents uncomfortable because they couldn't easily explain it at dinner parties. "You don't even live there," my mother said later, as if use determined worth. "It's just sitting." I didn't argue. That was mistake number 1. I told her I would think about it. That was mistake number 2. By Friday evening, my parents had already told Elise she was moving in regardless of any decisions I would make. I spent that night awake, staring at my ceiling, replaying conversations from the past that suddenly sounded different in my head. The way my parents had dismissed the house as sentimental nonsense. The way they had always referred to it as family property instead of Nora's house or your house. The way Elise had learned to let other people fight her battles while she waited for the outcome. By Saturday morning, I stopped wondering if they would try something illegal. I started planning for when. The locksmith arrived at 9 a.m. I stood on the porch while he worked, the smell of oil and metal mixing with the early spring air. Every lock was replaced. Every key accounted for. The security company followed. Cameras at the doors, motion sensors inside. Alerts routed to my phone. Not because I was afraid, because clarity requires records. I packed only what mattered. Photo albums, my grandmother's letters, the chipped mug she drank tea from every night at 9. I left everything else where it was. Let them see it. Let them understand this wasn't about hoarding memories. It was about boundaries. Elise called that afternoon. "I was thinking of stopping by tomorrow," she said lightly, "just to measure for curtains. Her tone was casual, assumptive, like the house had already agreed. "I won't be there," I said. There was a pause. Then irritation crept in. "Mom and Dad said this was settled." "It isn't." "You're being difficult," she snapped. "You always do this." I almost laughed. Number one, I finally wasn't. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Messages about family loyalty, about children, about doing the right thing. No one asked what I wanted. At 3 p.m., my parents showed up at my apartment. My mother looked wounded. My father carried a folder. Elise brought her daughter. That was when I understood how long they'd been planning this. "You're embarrassing us," my mother said as soon as they stepped inside. "This could have been handled privately." "You tried," I replied. My father slid a document across the counter. "We're prepared to contest the will." I glanced at it once. It was nonsense. "You're bluffing," I said. He smiled. "You don't know that." "I do." The smile didn't reach his eyes. "This isn't over," he said as they left. I believed him. Monday morning, the moving truck arrived at the house. So did I. I parked behind it, blocking the driveway. The patrol car pulled in moments later. My parents argued. Elise cried. The officers reviewed the paperwork, the deed, the restraining order. Reality landed slowly, like bad weather. They left. The house stayed quiet. I thought that was the ending. It wasn't. 3 days later, an email arrived from my grandmother's attorney. Subject line: additional materials, Bell Estate. Inside were documents I had never seen, emails, dates, years old. My parents had tried to challenge the will almost immediately after Nora's death. Not because of Elise, not because of necessity, because they didn't like the decision. Every attorney they contacted refused. Then I saw the envelope, registered, unopened, addressed to me, in my grandmother's handwriting. "Mara, if you are reading this, they finally showed you who they are. The house was never the gift. Time was. I needed to know if you would protect yourself without me. If you let them take it, you would still survive, but you would never be free. If you fought, you would lose them. Either way, you would choose. That is why the real inheritance isn't the house, it's what comes next." I sat on the floor for a long time. Then I turned the page. The codicil was simple. If the house became the subject of familial coercion or legal contest, ownership would transfer into a permanent community trust. No resale, no inheritance, no leverage. She had planned for this, not as a punishment, as a release. I activated the clause the next morning. The house left the family forever. So did I. My parents stopped calling. Elise sent one message. I didn't know she would do that. I didn't reply. The house still stands. It now shelters women who are leaving families that taught them obedience instead of safety. Sometimes I drive past. Sometimes I don't. But occasionally I see someone sitting on the porch, quiet, uncertain, breathing in the kind of air that feels like possibility. And I think my grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't leave me a house. She left me a way out.